Alright, welcome back. Well, it's just a possibility, right? But I can't bring myself to trust the servants yet. And that doesn't mean I only suspect them. Don't you think there might be some mastermind behind all this? Your father? A mastermind? Why do you say that? It's just a feeling. Think about what the word servant literally means. It means someone who serves as someone else's arms and legs, right? It was a bunch of Ushiromiya family members who got killed. So naturally, there must be someone involved who stands to gain from that result. Nice way to ignore Goda-san and Shannon-chan. This was also plain and clear. The Ushiromiya family had been right in the middle of discussions about how to distribute the inheritance when grandfather died. If this case followed the standard form of any classic mystery novel, the crime was definitely caused by someone with ties to the Ushiromiya family and who was involved in the inheritance problem. Eva, you're the only one left. Aunt Eva had probably read a few books in that genre herself. Her argument may have had a few blind assumptions in it, but it was a standard conclusion that anyone might have reached. I think most people would end up suspecting the servants, even if they used different reasoning to get there. Especially the story about the key to the shutter. That made it very easy to suspect that one of the servants was involved. And that's why I don't like it. What do you mean you don't like it? Nah, just talking to myself. Ehehe. I tried to dodge her question by joking, but I couldn't erase the sense of unease welling up inside me. After all, her conclusion was such an easy one to reach. A conclusion that anyone could reach. Bold. And I just couldn't be satisfied with that. If I tried spinning the chessboard around like I'd learned from Kirie-san, this was exactly why a servant couldn't possibly be the culprit. If the servants really were the culprits, they wouldn't hide the bodies in a place connected to themselves. Why on earth would they use the rose garden shed if they were the ones in charge of the key that could unlock it? The police would probably immediately pursue whoever had been in control of the key. It was even possible that some other facts might come to light as a result. The more we think of the servants as the culprits, the less reason they had to carry the bodies into the storehouse. But what if they knew we'd think that and put the corpses in the storehouse for that very reason? 4D chess. No, that's completely impossible. When the police come and inspect the scene of the crime, they'll probably be able to uncover many things. No matter how carefully the culprits carried out that murder, some traces will definitely be found. In other words, they had everything to lose and nothing to gain. If you think about it this way and look at this murder game from the culprit side, it's hard to imagine why they'd want to call attention to the corpses. Once the corpses were found, it could result in someone sending a report to the police, or it might make the remaining people more cautious, or it might make the survivors start to search for the culprit. None of these things would make life any easier for the culprit, unless you are a legendary witch. It's just like the words of the main character's mother in a novel I read recently called hello, Higurashi no Naku Koloni. I do believe I have heard of that work. Indeed, every story needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Eliminating that beginning is essential for the perfect crime. Right now, we don't know where grandfather is. We don't know if he's already become a victim or if he's one of the culprits. But this state of confusion must be beneficial to the killer. Ooh, Silent Hill calls. The culprit has absolutely nothing to gain by showing us the bodies in such an obvious way and making us all realize there's been a murder. In fact, this is the perfect place to spin the chessboard around. In other words, showing us the corpses in such a flashy way must be the culprit's goal in and of itself. I seriously wish they edited out every time someone said "in other words." So at the very least, to the culprit, the appearance of 6 corpses there meant more than the deaths themselves. bold. In other words, are you fucking serious? The culprit wanted this murder on display. To whom? To us. This is a message. The culprit's trying to shove something in our faces. I don't know what it is. At this point in time, this vulgar mass murder isn't making me feel anything except a malice directed towards all of us. Malice towards all of us, is it? Each one of the survivors has some kind of connection to one of the 6 victims. Are they serious right now? You're all family, you're all connected. Uncle Krause's death brought Jessica the grief of losing a family member. The deaths of Dad and Kirie-san brought me sorrow, while Aunt Rosa's death brought Maria... Did you see Maria? Did you see that child? She did not look sorrowful at all. Ew, TV. Goda-san's death probably shocked his fellow servants. No, I dare say they're probably happy. And Shannon-chan's death brought grief both to George Anaki, who had proposed to her, and Kanon-kun, who had loved her like an older sister. Everyone now on this island has received an equal amount of sadness. Poor Goda-san. Aunt Eva was sure that the servants were in cahoots. See, Aunt Eva, Hideyoshi, and George, nothing happened to their family, like if we discount Shannon. Interesting. But then, how could you explain the deaths of Goda-san and Shannon-chan? At any rate, by this argument, the grief caused by the 6 deaths hit everyone. Oh, but Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi. Hey, we're on the same wavelength. Even Aunt Eva, who had directed suspicion at the servants and acted as though she herself was beyond suspicion, could not be ruled out as a suspect. In the first place, she was able to argue that the servants were suspicious by focusing on the shutter's key. But if you look at it from a perspective of motive and who would gain, exactly, Aunt Eva's name rises to the top of the list, exactly. It was Genji. Man, she's looking tired. I know what you're thinking, Battler-kun. Huh? Ehehe, oh no, please don't tell anybody about how my head's so full of obscene stuff. Really, now is not the time. I'm the one who's going to gain the most from these murders. Since I'm going to be suspected anyway, I might as well get it out in the open. I tried to dodge the issue by joking around, but apparently it didn't work. Because Battler-kun, now is not the time. The inheritance will be divided into as many parts as there are siblings, but right now I'm the only one of the 4 left. Woo! All of the assets of the Ushiromiya family will become mine. Woo! Hehehehe. If Uncle Hideyoshi heard you, he'd say, could you give it a rest? It's not funny. I'm sorry. I was just fooling around since I'm going to be suspected anyway, no matter how much I try to smooth it over. That's why, from my point of view, this murder might have been designed to cast suspicion on me. Unfortunately, my alibi for last night is weak. Could you tell me a bit more about last night? Not in short. As you know, the discussion between the siblings of how to slice up and eat the inheritance continued until late into the night. Please do not eat money. But I don't know how late it lasted. My husband and I had woken up early that morning. We were so sleepy, and a little past midnight they let us go. We then returned to the guest house and rested there. Can anyone other than Uncle Hideyoshi prove that? No, wait. It's not like I suspect you or anything, okay? He. Oh, are you sure about that? Giggle. I don't know if it counts as proof, but when we returned to the guest house, we were greeted by Genji-san, who asked if we needed a towel. I think that should be enough to prove we returned to the guest house a little after midnight. Though if my theory was correct, the servants would all be in cahoots, and that wouldn't actually make for much of an alibi. Hey, you've got a point there. Guess that means I'm playing detective with the real culprit right now, huh? Ha ha! Ehehe. However, let me say this for my honest sake. If I was after the inheritance, I'd never commit such a bizarre set of murders. After all, if I just wanted to make them forfeit their rights to the inheritance, it wouldn't matter to me how they died. It'd be much smarter of me to try and make their deaths look like accidents. Especially if you're assuming I laid out some careful plan that involved even the servants. You've got a point there. If you're killing someone for personal gain, you definitely shouldn't make it look like a murder. Exactly. That's why I'm in such a blue mood. What? The police will probably treat me like the mastermind and investigate all kinds of things. Not fun at all. Your family just died and that's what you're worried about? Aunt Eva shrugged with a bitter smile. It was just as easy to suspect Aunt Eva as it was to suspect the servants. So if we spin the chessboard around, does that make it impossible for the culprit to be her, suspicious as she is? However, if that sort of argument always works, then motive can never help us in any way. No, that can't be right. Knowing the motive must give us powerful clues towards knowing the culprit. That's why murderers from all time periods disguise crimes in complicated ways, cleverly preventing their motives from being discovered. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Every time I spin the chessboard around, it keeps flipping from front to back and front to back. Stop spinning it then. Are my thoughts bringing me closer to the truth? Or are they? Aunt Eva didn't want to talk any more than that, so I folded my arms and headed to the window to cool my head a little. As I looked over the parlour, I saw George, Anarchy, and the others gathered, talking. It looked like they were talking about the magic circle that had been painted on the shutter. As Uncle Hideyoshi thought back to that time, he started drawing the shape in the margins of Maria's notebook. I see, since Maria was second only to grandfather in knowledge of the occult, she might understand what it meant. You're all doomed. I think it was probably something like that. There was a mark that looked like a variation of a cross. And then, surrounding the circle, all around the perimeter, were these closely packed strange letters on all four sides of the cross, and in the four corners there was something written. Yes, clear as ice. It didn't look like the alphabet or something like that. It was what they call ancient characters. And around the top of the circumference there was a small mark. 5 small circles arranged in a plus sign and straight lines connecting them. Ah, yeah, there definitely was something like that drawn there. Yep, there's no mistake in the shape. I don't understand the thing characters, but the arrangement was nearly the same. Everyone was staring down at the shape, so I stared down at it too. From what I'd heard, this had been painted on the shutter to the storehouse with some material that looked like blood. I see, this sure is unsettling. Grandfather's probably the only one who'd want to draw something this weird. Seriously, where did he go? I want to grab him and ask him what the hell this is supposed to mean. Jessica's voice contained impatience and anger. She hadn't gone so far as to say grandfather was the culprit, but she seemed sure that grandfather knew something about the culprit's background. No shit. Of course, if you were searching for a link connecting the Ushinomiya family to the occult, 10 out of 10 people would think of grandfather. Also, to a person who knew nothing of the occult, this strange mark would have no meaning. Which meant that this might have been something addressed to grandfather. That's right, and the reason the crime was shown to the survivors was so they'd find this. In that case, where had grandfather, the essential recipient of this message, disappeared off to? Does this shape ring any bells? Ooh. Maria looked at the shape with a serious face. Maybe she was enthusiastic because this was her area of expertise. However, her appearance was that of someone separated from the events at hand, as though this thing hadn't been drawn on the shutter closed around her mother's corpse. My first impression was that the design resembled a German cross. Ah, it certainly does have that kind of design. Look at Hideyoshi here pretending like he knows what a German cross is. Does that mean it's got something to do with Germany? The German cross was originally a crest from a religious order of knights and was supposed to protect pilgrims travelling to sacred places. Nanjo's stepping in with the knowledge. So in other words, this magic circle might have some religious meaning. This is starting to sound like gibberish. When I looked over at all of them, preparing to jump into the discussion, something shocked me. Maria was smiling, an eerie, an incomprehensible expression on her face. Well, I mean, her mother was an asshole. It was almost as if she was making fun of everyone's ignorance. It was an expression I wouldn't have dreamed to find on Maria's face. And she laughed. That eerie, jarring laugh was something I didn't want to believe was possible, even though I was looking at it right in front of my eyes. Yeah, she's looking a little creepy. He. Yeah, I'm not counting all those he's. You people aren't even close. He, etc., etc. Can't you tell just by looking? He, close enough. While everyone was busy being scared out of their wits, Maria kept on cackling happily to herself. After a while, that laugh was suddenly and abruptly cut off. But her expression still looked like it belonged to someone completely different from Maria. This is the 7th magic circle of the sun. Well, that explains everything. The characters are written in Hebrew. Give it here. Ah, sure, totally knew that, of course. Maria stole the writing materials from the stunned Hideyoshi's hand. She then started drawing another magic circle with a rustle right next to the one Hideyoshi had drawn. See? It looks sort of like this, right? Nanjo's having a stroke. Yes, it was. Maria, incredible. You really do know a lot. Look at the mix of faces here. Jessica tried to smooth things over by praising Maria. Maybe she wanted to confirm that this was still the Maria we all knew so well. But Maria didn't answer her in any way in particular. Maria began swiftly writing unfamiliar characters in the corners of the shape. When Uncle Hideyoshi and Dr. Nanjo saw them, their eyes immediately began to open wide. Written on the top and bottom and the left and right are the names of the angels who preside over wind, fire, earth and water. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I have zero idea how to pronounce these. Chasan, Arul, Forlak, and Taliyahad. I'm so sorry, angels. I'm sorry. And in the 4 corners are the names of the 4 great kings. Ariel, Seraph, Tharshis, and Cherub. Is that what you saw? Totally. Absolutely. Even if they hadn't been able to correctly write what they'd seen, when they were once again shown something identical, it wasn't difficult for them to realize the two were the same. When Maria asked them whether it matched, Uncle Hideyoshi and Dr. Nanjo nodded over and over again. Totally. There's no mistake. That's it. I'm sure there were characters that looked like that. How were you able to write something like that? There were also characters written around the circumference. Duh. I know. Like this, right? Oh, you're all morons. Maria quickly began to surround the circumference with more Hebrew writing. It's from the Psalms of the Old Testament, the 16th and 17th verses of the 116th Psalm. Okay, sure. You must have at least read the Bible, right? No. Acting as though knowing this was only common sense, Maria laughed. For a while, everyone, including me, was at a loss for words. A little later, George Anarchy returned to his senses and slowly managed to speak. That's incredible. I'm surprised. So what meaning does this magic circle have? It's a magic circle to borrow the power of the sun, of course. He who wears it as a talisman drawn in gold shall be able to break free from the bonds of any prison and receive the power to gain freedom. Duh. To break free from bonds and gain freedom? Sounds deep. The word bonds is not limited in its interpretation to some kind of physical object. Yes, you listen to the 9-year-old. Therefore, it does not only hold meaning for people locked up in an actual jail. It can also refer to the release from mental bonds such as ties of obligation and inescapable fate. Ties of obligation and inescapable fate, you say? That's also pretty deep. But I really don't understand. What does this have to do with those 6 bodies? Apart from being released, they were killed and stuffed in a storehouse, weren't they? Maria's just like, oh, I'm surrounded by morons. It's not like the magic circle was drawn for their sakes. The 6 of them were there for the sake of the magic circle. Duh. It was truly pitiable. He. What do you mean? What in the world do you mean when you say the 6 of them were there for the sake of the magic circle? Why is everyone a moron? Use your brains. Maria lifted up her pointer finger and waggled it, as if she was making fun of us. I mean, it's not hard to do. That's written around the circumference. Can't you read it? Psalms, chapter 116, verses 16 and 17. I'll read it for you. I hope she's memorized it. The Lord has freed me from my chains. I will offer to you the sacrifice of thanksgiving, and will call on the name of the Lord. See? See, you say. I've got no idea what you're talking about, clearly. You're saying they're human sacrifices. Oh, these people. If what Maria had just read aloud was a vital part of the magic circle, then it was saying that sacrifices had to be offered in order for this magic circle to be effective. So human sacrifices had been offered inside the storehouse where the magic circle had been drawn. A heartbeat later, everyone else seemed to reach the same conclusion. Some people were shocked and others spat out that this was insane as they punched their knees. Why would you punch your knee? That seems painful. This was starting to get incredibly disturbing, as we couldn't accept it or understand it. I don't care what kind of magic circles or curses other people believe in. I won't pick a fight with them. Ugh. But did they really kill Dad and the rest as sacrifices for crap like that? I just couldn't stand that feeling. Compared to this, I preferred it when we were still disgusted by that theory about the fight over the inheritance. As I started getting pissed off with a feeling between anger and sadness, I broke from the circle everyone was in and returned once again to the window. Something had gone insane since yesterday. There was that letter from the witch, Beatrice, that Maria had read aloud at last night's dinner. Ever since that point, it feels like like this whole mansion and this whole island have been getting more and more firmly locked inside some kind of bizarre world. That's right. When I think back on it, that letter was an invitation from the witch. The ruler of the nighttime island had invited us inhabitants of the day into another world. The phone and the radio had been interrupted, and the island was shut off by the typhoon, so you really could call this place another world cut off from the real one by now. Yes, we've said all this many times. Yeah, as this island is now, it's perfectly normal for a witch to send us letters and for human sacrifices to be offered up for the sake of magic circles. So what will happen next? Hopefully, the story will move forward. That'd be nice. Will some weird people wearing goat masks start doing the Bond Festival dance or something? Hey man, that'd be pretty cool. It's hopeless, I don't get it. The inside of my head's all screwed up and I don't even know what to think. Anger, sadness, the opposing emotions all swirled up together and they started to suck me in. Unable to resist, I could do nothing but cover my eyes with my hands and trust to my mind and body as I started getting sucked in. Phew. As I started losing heart, I began to recall a memory from when I was small. It was from when I was very young. I had unfortunately seen a scary occult movie on TV, and for a while, I hadn't even been able to go to the bathroom by myself. That old bastard gave an exaggerated laugh and said this. Hey, Battler. Why do you think they go to all the trouble to make movies like this about demons and the occult and such? It's because they don't exist. Something that ridiculous can't be found anywhere on the planet. Because they don't exist, people want to see them and go to a lot of effort making them. That's why those occult movies just make me laugh. If I were forced to choose, I'd say, rather than demons and monsters, this year's earnings, Call and Angry Wives are 100 million times scarier. Yeah, I'd say your family is the worst of all. I'll go further, okay? From my point of view, getting scared is a recreational emotion, something for people who've got room to relax both in their hearts and their lifestyles. They had so much free time they didn't know what to do with it, so in order to entertain their mind with unusual emotions, people started creating a culture with demons and the occult and stuff. Okay. Seriously, why have I been acting so damn thick-headed? I was totally taken in. Don't try to mess with me, this is the human world. I don't give a damn about witches, demons, magic circles, and sacrifices. The human who killed Dad and everyone else is still on this island. Ooh, I think Battler is in for some rough times. That's all there is to it, right? Oh, Kirie-san. The next person who started speaking to my heart was Kirie-san. You see, in both chess and shogi, when you reach the very, very last stage of the game and get closer and closer to cornering your opponent, the number of optimal moves you can possibly make gets smaller and smaller. Therefore, if you're backing someone against the wall, or if someone's doing the same to you, both players' moves become infinitely easier to read. In other words, when you're completely cornered and you think that you have no moves left, that is the moment when it's easiest to read your opponent. However, when a person is forced into a defensive position, they can't help but lose their ability to think clearly, so they aren't able to get their minds around their opponent's moves. That's when you spin the chessboard around. Thanks, Kirie-san. With all my strength, I slapped my face with both hands. Now my eyes were truly open. When you don't understand anything and you're completely cornered just like I am now, isn't that the perfect time to spin the chessboard around? While on the defensive, we can't even guess at the culprit scheme. If we spin it around and look at it that way, just what might we see? First off, at the time the culprit committed the murders, they knew the island was being cut off by the typhoon. Therefore, they should have understood that even if they carried out the murders, they wouldn't be able to get away early the next morning. In short, the culprit had begun without securing a way to escape. Furthermore, that bastard tossed the corpses in the storehouse. Then was even kind enough to say, "Here they are," with that weird bit of graffiti. In other words, since we'd probably find the corpses sooner or later, they wanted to show them to us. If we'd all been dim and hadn't noticed the storage shed, the culprit's goal would not have been achieved, would it? Hehe, if you think about it this way, that bastard of a culprit. Since this morning, they must have been watching our every move with bated breath. After all, if we hadn't been so kind as to discover what was on the storehouse, all of that hard work and preparation they did last night would have gone poof. What did the culprit want to make us feel by showing us the corpses in the storehouse? All of the 6 bodies had their faces noticeably destroyed. Was it a grudge? A warning? The defacement of the bodies had occurred after death, so it hadn't been the means by which the culprit had killed. It didn't mean anything to those who had been killed. It did have meaning to those who found the bodies. The culprit wanted to make it appear that they had been killed so brutally. After thinking this way, I really want to tell that bastard to stop taking me so lightly. Who'd just dance to that tune? If you're told please be scared, you can't just say, really? Sure thing. When someone tells the great Ushiromiya battler the entrance is right there, I'm the kind of guy who'll start wanting to sneak in through the window. That just makes you a douchebag. The next thing that had me concerned was that the so-called magic circle on the shutter. As Maria, who had shown that her knowledge of the occult rival grandfathers, had recognized that magic circle was genuine. They must have drawn that thing in pitch black darkness, taking a lot of time and holding an umbrella in one hand. Isn't that amount of hard work and perfectionism impressive? What purpose would it have been worth all of that effort? If we were looking for a fan of the occult in this mansion, most likely all of us would naturally suspect grandfather. Did they want to make us think grandfather was involved? But if that's all they wanted, they could have just drawn in any old scribble that looked like a magic circle. But then you wouldn't have fooled Maria. It wasn't like any of us amateurs would be able to tell the difference between genuine and fake. However, this magic circle was genuine, and furthermore, it had even been written in Hebrew. So this magic circle had a message that could only be understood by someone with knowledge of the occult. A message is a form of By sending it, they were hoping for a reaction. A reaction? For some reason, we couldn't find Grandfather now. I don't know how Grandfather might have spotted the magic circle on the shutter, but did he choose to hide himself in reaction to that? No, was it a trap to make us suspect that Grandfather had participated? You could read it either way. Damn, that's annoying. What kind of reaction was the culprit hoping to get out of us? Stop saying the same things over and over. Somehow that felt like the culprit's weak point. The letter from Beatrice that Maria had read aloud during last night's dinner sprang back into my mind. Oh good. This was a freak who'd asked us to enjoy a battle of wits. Isn't that interesting? This is a battle of wits between us and the witch. Will we be sucked up by her occult game first? Or will we pull off her fake skin first? What? There's a whole day until the typhoon passes. Why not enjoy ourselves? Indeed. Alright, this is the perfect spot to end this episode. My voice is really sore. So, let's find out what's going to happen over the final day in the next one. See you there.